making an impact. Each one of us is to make an impact upon our world. Now, we can't only a few small individuals make an impact on the world itself as a group, but each one of us can make an impact on the world that we live in, the people that we encounter. Because you see, God saved our souls for a purpose. He did not save us for the purpose of saying, now go do anything you want to, live as reckless as you want to. It doesn't matter what you do, you just live it up. No, he said, be my holy vessels. Be made and live in my image and after my likeness. God is holy. So basically, we're saved for two purposes. One is to honor God by how we live. And the second purpose is to share Jesus with the world so that more people can come to have saving faith in Jesus Christ and in turn honor God with their lives and share their faith in Jesus too. Last Wednesday, we talked about maturing over time. It takes time for us to mature in our walk with Jesus. And we talked about the difficulties that we battle with every stage of life. And as I said, and Don reminded me, we know one watched it because she knew the magic words. We said, this is a depressing subject to talk about. Well, guess what? The subject becomes maybe more depressing because here's our topic for tonight. The retirement stage. When you hear the word retirement, what comes to your mind? Death, does it? Okay. What else? Anybody else? What comes to your mind when you hear the word retirement? Just think naturally what comes to you.
Not working anymore.
Not working anymore, all right? Death, not working. What else? What?
Working more.
Working more. Okay, that's what happened to a lot of people.
Something I'll never see.
All right, something I'll never see. Wait a minute, Dwight. Older people. Getting to sleep late.
Now, 50 years ago, I thought of retirement as a happy time.
A happy time?
Now, 50 years later, I'm thinking, what was I thinking? It is a happy time, but it's just different than I expected.
How many of you have, now, I know you've heard a lot of people say this, how many of you have experienced the golden years are not near as golden?
Yeah.
Almost everybody that's golden says they're not as golden as we thought they were going to be.
My 11 years of retirement has been the greatest years of my life.
Did you hear John? What a testimony. Greatest year. Now, share with us why.
Well, I don't have near the responsibility that I had, and I can do things the way, as much so as I can afford it, the way I want to do it.
Okay?
And I have enjoyed the 11 years. I had one pretty bad sick spell there about the time we came down here to church. But other than that, I've been healthy, been able to usually do a lot more than I want to in other days. But
If you have health with the retirement, then it can truly be a blessing. If health is poor, then that it just messes it up. Like Jimmy.
I have loved my retirement. Lately I've got where I've not felt real good for a little bit, but I still love my retirement.
Okay?
I thought it would take longer to get here.
Amen. I think we all thought it would take longer.
I mean, just the other day, my kids was home, and now I'm old, and they're old too.
There you are. Yeah, when you realize your children are getting older too, that's when I think it really hits home that you're getting older. All right, regardless of your age, I don't care if you're only in your 30s or if you are retirement age, regardless of your age, if money was not an issue, what do you think you would do with your life? Garden. You're already gardening. You travel. Because, we know from television, movies, magazines, there's a big old world out there to enjoy and to discover, isn't there? What else? If money was not an option, what else would you do?
I do just what I do right now.
All right.
I'm happy with what I do.
Farming every day.
I enjoy being going on mission
Mission trips. Very good.
I always thought if money was an option, it would be so nice to be able to bless people with it, you know what I'm saying?
Use your financial blessings to bless others. Very good.
I always said if I had a lot of money that I would help the economy because I would spend like crazy.
Okay. Yeah, very good.
I keep working.
But keep working, regardless.
I think I would too, keep something.
Y'all discovered something in the keep working. It's having what, the purpose?
Well, to me, I need, I'm trying to think of that word, I need something to focus on. I just need more than one.
You
thing
need
to do.
structure.
That's it. I need to have something. I just gotta have it.
Okay?
But that gives you different options to do.
My wife will tell you I need structure. And when I'm pinned down, I'll have to admit it, I do. It's real easy to kill half a day.
You gotta have something to look forward to every day. I mean, if you got a mission to try to accomplish, I don't know what it would be like to not have nothing to wake up to.
And that's part of that structure things that she's talking about. Something that you need to do to accomplish something. When we sit in mundane with no real plans, you know, if we don't plan much, we usually don't do much. When you retire, what do you think God would have you to do with your life? What He's given us to do. Okay?
Give more time to the church and the activities.
All right, more time to church and godly type activities. Visit people. We realize how important relationships are. And so by being retired, you're able to take that time and spend a little time, 2 or 3 hours with somebody maybe, or whatever. Even if it's a good quality hour and then somewhere else.
You might go somewhere to visit somebody for a few minutes and stay 2 or 3 hours. And you think, well, I need to go. And you think, well, I don't have anywhere I have to go.
Okay.
He likes that all the time.
So you can
He does that.
stay there, and a lot of people need it.
All right. Good.
There's going to be an activity next week where they're going to be feeding people during spring break. The Y's asking for people to volunteer to come and help on Monday and Tuesday at the fairgrounds.
She mentioned asking people to volunteer. I think volunteering is good for the soul. Whatever, if you're volunteering for one person, your neighbor down the street, or you're volunteering for an organization, that's all good. Whatever it is.
I have realized that so many people out there need something, need some help doing something, this and that.
Yeah.
And of course, I need help at times, but there's a lot of people need it, and I get more of an enjoyment of helping somebody else than I do working for myself.
All right, let me ask you this question. Now, I do not have any statistical data, any survey results, so this is strictly your opinion. If you were just analyzing society in general, what percentage of all people, not just retirees, but everybody, working people, everybody in between, what percentage of all people do you think are happy with their lives today?
At least 50%.
You think 50 are?
30.
30?
Yes, like 35 or something.
30 to 35? All right, what do y'all base that on?
The people we know, and you know, like you're looking around here, most of the people in here are happy.
Okay?
But what about all those others that not involved in a church? They're probably not happy.
Keep in mind, the last statistic I knew of in White County, only 6% of White County attends church of any kind. I don't care what flavor you call it. That's a small percentage.
But we were
And we're
raised in
talking
church.
about people in here are pretty happy. But so there's a broad perspective out there. That's why I asked you, in general, from what you hear, and part of it depends on where you interact.
I was gonna say 3%, because like you said, there's so many that ain't rooted in God or His words. And even among those who come and sit on pews, there's a lot of grumpy pew sitters.
Yep, there is. There is a lot of grumpy pew sitters. What was I going? I was about to lose it there. This is a good question too. I got to come up with it. It's so good I can't remember it.
What's this about getting old?
Talk about the percentages of people that you think are happy with their life. Oh, what percentage of people you think are happy with their job?
That's what I was about to say there. I don't think majority of folks, I think a lot of people's job is just strictly for a paycheck.
Okay?
I don't think a lot of people are doing what they want to do, and that spills over into their personal life. People have to work more because rent's up, groceries is up, things cost more than they used to. So people are spending more time at a job they don't like. And I feel like if you was retired or financially stable, you'd have more time to witness or volunteer, to actually do things that either if you're church or just out here in the world, whether it be fishing or hunting or, worldly things that people enjoy, they just don't have the time. And not only the time, they just can't stop working because fishing don't pay bills. And as good as witnessing is, folks, and God will bless you for it, but, people gotta work.
They still have to work to make a living. The reason I asked you about that statistic, and I think for the most part, what I've heard y'all saying is probably high. The reason I think you're on the high side and not accurate, because I think a small percentage of working people are happy with their work. And that would include people whether or not they're happy with their lives. And, if you're still in the workforce, and you're a full-time employee, you're talking about a minimum 40 hours a week. So you got 40 hours a week, and what he said there, that you're not really, it's just because it's a means to an end. It's a means to pay bills, but it's not really something that is, it doesn't have meaning to it or purpose to it much.
I've heard a saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
There's a young couple came to my house this week washing my windows. They're John Ann's age, when I went to school with her. They quit their jobs because they got tired of that job. And they are the happiest couple. They never griped the whole time, no matter what. They were out there in that cold Monday. And best little couple, had the best time.
Or, that's a good point. For people who are working, if you find work that you enjoy, then you'll find yourself more happy.
They quit computers and cities.
Six-figure salaries to wash windows,
Yeah.
but they love what they do now.
I always said, if the only thing you look forward to is Saturday, you're gonna have a miserable life.
That's right.
Good day, a good point. If you're waiting for the weekend, as the song says, working for the weekend. Anybody else with a thought?
I think all of God's people ought to be the happiest people in the world.
They should be, shouldn't they?
Yes.
Because we know where our future is, where we're headed. All right. Well, here's the point of all this. People of all ages are looking for a fresh start. And that's what I want us to focus on tonight when we talk about the retirement stage of life. So this isn't just for retired people. So let's look at some scriptures that talk about that. And I told you Genesis a while ago. I want you to, first of all, let's go to Genesis 2, verse 15, just one verse. Then we're going to skip over chapter 3. Here's the first thing that we know about work. Then the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. That tells us right there. God made us to be active, working. A goal to accomplish, to tend and keep the garden. So there was a lot of work to be done. And if you have fruit trees, or if you raise a garden where you plant plants in the ground to produce some kind of vegetable or fruit, there's a lot of work involved. If you're keeping up your yard, there's a lot of work in your yard keeping. If you have projects around the house that you're constructing or repairing or whatever, there's a lot of work involved, but that kind was intended to be meaningful and purposeful. All right, let's look at chapter 3 and see what happened with work after the fall of man, verses 17 through 19. I've got them on the board there. Let's read this. This is after God has confronted Adam and Eve when they have eaten from the forbidden fruit. And they became so ashamed of themselves, they realized that they were naked. They were ashamed because they knew they'd been rebellious. So they hid from God. And God confronted them and brought them out. Then he said, then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it. He didn't say you'll continue to dress and keep it. Now in toil, the word toil is the key there. Stressful labor. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, to dust you shall return. So here God is saying, if we are able, we're intended to work, and now work in this life is stressful. There is sweat, and there's a different kind of sweat. We're talking about the stress that comes with your job, whatever it is. So that's what God promised as a punishment, because it was the penalty for disobeying him. Does anybody have a question about these passages or a comment to make? All right, I want you to go with me to another one. This is in the Proverbs. Skip on over. Right after Psalms. You know, there's 150 Psalms. So after you get to the 150th Psalm, I want you to go to Proverbs 4:23. These verses of Scripture, first Genesis was to tell us about work. And the second passage in Genesis tells us about how work became a drudgery, a toil, the reason that people look for the weekend. All right, Proverbs 4:23 says this. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it, that is the heart, spring the issues of life. This proverb tells us we have to guard our hearts as long as we live, because all the issues of life spring forth from your heart. All the issues of attitude, whether they're good or bad, all the issues of stress, everything that comes upon us, relationships with people, good or bad, comes and it affects our heart, which is our inner being, our soul. Now, look on over to chapter 10, verse 9 of Proverbs. Proverbs 10:9. This is talking about how we live our life, making an impact. He who walks with integrity walks securely. If you use integrity in how you live your life, in how you deal with people, that has to do with honesty. It has to do with, ethics, how ethical you are and how you treat somebody. Those kind of things. He who walks with integrity walks securely. It'll be a secure life if you live by integrity. That's a promise for us. But he who perverts his ways will become known. If you live your life with no integrity, people will figure you out, in other words. That's what that means. So this is two key verses in the Proverbs that talk to us about how we live our life, how we make an impact, good or bad, upon people. One more. Now we're going all the way over to the New Testament with this one. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. Once again, remember our topic, our retirement life. The retirement stage of life, not necessarily the retirement age, but the retirement stage of life. Verse 7, 2 Timothy 4. The Apostle Paul, knowing he was close to the end, summed up how he felt about himself. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. So he knew that he had laid it all on the line for the Lord. That's basically what he's saying in his testimony of his life here. That's the testimony each one of us wants to have as believers in Jesus Christ. To know that we have finished our race, the race that God laid out for you to do, the calling upon your life, keeping the faith. Keep running your course. Any comment or thought here? There is not a verse of Scripture that tells you when you ought to retire. So it has to do with the individual on your own personal thinking. But what we want to get from, poor health makes people inactive at younger ages than it does other people. There's people in their 40s and 50s are on disability because they've had catastrophic injuries or whatever. Emotional, mental breakdowns, whatever. But I want to leave a couple of points with you. Here's one of them. Man is created to have meaningful work that honors God. So if you're retired, you still need something meaningful to do. If you are still in the workforce, earning a paycheck in order to be able to put groceries on the table, you're not drawing Social Security, not drawing your pension or whatever it is that you have laid back, then you also, whichever status you're at, you still need meaningful work that honors God. Now, we can talk about what meaningful work is. Anybody, what is meaningful work? What do you think meaningful work is?
Work with a return.
All right, work with a return. And when we say return, what do we mean by that?
Either gratitude or food.
Gratitude or something you're producing, you're able to, okay? Or what else?
Something productive that helps somebody.
Productive that helps other people and helps yourself too. What else when we say meaningful work?
I think it's different for different people.
It is, John. Thank you. Meaningful work does differ to everybody, and it will differ probably depending on the age that you're at.
I think not necessarily meaningful work for like who you're working for, your job.
Okay.
It may not be a job that's really a meaningful job for any
Okay.
particular reason, but you may be meaningful to your coworkers while you're at that job.
That's meaningful work. Very good. When I say meaningful work, I think something that challenges your mind, satisfies your soul after you've accomplished it.
Sometimes what you're doing may not seem that meaningful to you, and then you find out that
It was more meaningful than you thought, wasn't it?
yes.
Thank you. Another good point to bring up.
Guy called me about 2 weeks after I retired, and he and I hadn't been friends or anything. I mean, we knew one another, but we weren't close friends or anything. And he called me and told me, he said, I didn't realize how much you helped me every day, because when you were gone, I out in the woods by myself, kind of, he said, and I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate it. I really thought a lot of those boys.
That made your day. That would have made my day to be told that. To know you've made a difference in somebody else by your working.
And John's still making a difference. I saw him just last week sitting at a book sale at the library, helping the library make some money. And I'm sure, I knowing him, he's talking
That's
to a lot of
meaningful
people.
work. That is meaningful work.
Well, it's fun. I do it, I'm glad I'm helping people, but I would do it because it's fun, and you get to talk to a lot of people. A lot of people I only see every 6 months at the book sale.
Yeah.
And he'll even say, somebody's going by the door, he'll say, get in here and buy something.
Yeah. That's meaningful too. All right.
A lot of times it's meaningful see what we do to help somebody else and see how happy we are doing it, might make them think about doing it.
And that'll also make it more meaningful for us, because that comes back to that more blessed to give than to receive thing. So when you realize you're a blessing to others, that makes you even more blessed. Very good. So you see, retirement isn't the end, it's a new beginning. It's a new chapter in your life. It's just at a different stage. You're probably going at a different pace from what you used to win at. Thoughts, questions here? Anything more about meaningful work?
When I retired, I thought I had all kinds of plans, and I got sick right after I retired, and it gave me a whole new perspective on what I needed to do and how I needed to be.
Good point there. Thank you, Brenda. How many times do we hear somebody, they just trudge right along, all of a sudden they retire, and it's just like their body falls apart. What happens there? You know, there's no rhyme or reason. We don't understand all that.
That's why I said death reminds me of retirement.
Yeah.
People retire, they seem like they pass on.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that is retired and never draw the first check.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel more alive now than I did before.
That's because you're living with meaningful work going on. You're not necessarily working to get income, but you're working. Your life has purpose.
You said a while ago, when we got to thinking about it, you said something about people work in your community. You don't have to work in the whole world, but we never know who we're touching and what we're doing that might go out into the world.
That's a good point. Yeah, we could influence, everybody that's been a leader of this nation, of this world, had somebody all the way down on our level, on the local, family, community level, that influenced them, that they went out and did the big thing. The other thing is John's, how many more people are like that you just haven't heard from, that you meant something to him. You may have meant that to more, and they just didn't get around to saying it. Anything more? Second point I want to leave with you. Here it is. We never retire from serving God. You can retire from employment, but you're never retired from Him. You see, and in retirement, we have the opportunity, even more opportunities, Jimmy alluded to it a while ago, to serve God in new, exciting ways. How can you serve God in a part-time job? A lot of people retire, turn around and get part-time jobs. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it can be very good. How can you serve God in a part-time job?
Witness.
You're witnessing while you're working.
You can smile.
It's a lot easier to smile when it's a part-time job.
When you're working, and other people say, how's he doing that?
Yeah.
Why is he happy when I hate it? And stuff. And you can influence other people like that.
Back to somebody said, when the pressure's off. When you can work and there's no pressure with it, that goes back to that curse in the Garden of Eden. The pressure came from that. But when you're able to retire and then just work part-time to make a little, the pressure's off to be the performer, to produce whatever, and it can be more enjoyable.
I've got a friend who used to be a working foreman the same time I was, and then he became a supervisor, went on and retired. He'd been sick and everything else, and now he works every day. And he's quite a bit older than me and stuff. But he works, and he always got a smile on his face.
Yep. Yep. How can we serve God through volunteering in the community? And I'm not talking about becoming a walking Bible dictionary to people. I'm just talking about what are ways, or volunteering at the church. That's good. But how can you, as a volunteer in the community, how can you serve the Lord?
Being
A better listener for people. A positive influence. Go ahead.
It's kind of like being that beacon of light, like Jimmy said, like I was when I was lost. A guy I grew up with, he came to me one day and told me that he had been saved, and I just noticed how happy he was, and I wanted that. I was almost jealous of it. And I told him one day, I said, man, I wish I
It is, isn't it? That's why we're the light of the world. All right, let's summarize this thing. From the moment we're born, we're on a collision course with change. Your life's going to change. When you're first born, the first change is growth. You're growing from infant to maturity, and you go so far, and then you plateau. The only problem is the plateau don't go near as long as we thought it would. Because what happens is we go on that plateau, and all of a sudden, the other stage is declining. What we need to focus on is finishing the race and keeping the faith through all those stages of life. Finishing the race, keeping the faith. Final comments, questions? I'm done. I'm going to retire for the evening. If you'll stand with me, we'll be dismissed in prayer. Terry, would you lead us, please?